All right, so now we're live. So we'll start with personality disorders. The DSM typically breaks it into clusters, and people have coined different names for it, but the first cluster is often called the odd and eccentric cluster. And then the first one that we'll go over is a paranoid personality disorder. And this is often summarized as distrust and or suspicion Wow, what word do I want to say? Suspicious. There's a P in there. Suspicious. There we go. Suspicious of others and their motives within the relationship. So, what we need for this in particular are four of the following. So, time length, there isn't one. Criteria, requirement, four of them. And with that, we are looking at the first one being person suspects that others will use or exploit them, exploit them, harm them, or deceive them in some way. However, caveat here. Okay, give me. There is no actual evidence of the actions. The other one, person is preoccupied with doubts that their friends or close colleagues will remain in their life and that they will lose their trust. So basically, they're skeptical of relationships or that they are capable of maintaining them. So person, you're meeting with somebody does an action and you're like, oh my God, they probably aren't gonna care about me. So the person is reluctant to share any personal information or details with others for fear that the information, that the person will use it against them in some way. Fourth criteria, person will misread or misinterpret a benign if my hands want to work, benign / fancy term for kind gesture as something that can be used against them or that there is a hidden motive behind the action. So this would look like, oh, so if you were somebody that got like free admission from me tonight, oh, he must want something out of that free admission. Like he did that for some reason. He wouldn't just do this out of the kindness of his heart. He's going to use this against me. He knows who I am. He knows this, and so it's like perpetuating these ideas that are untrue. However, the person is so fixated with this idea that they perpetuate it and formulate it such as that it is true. So this person will hold grudges towards people for actions that they have done, criticism / ridicule, and or anything they view as being against them. The person will react in a negative manner, such as excessive anger. Okay. So the sixth criteria that we're looking at is a person believes that their character or actions are being, so their character actions are being degraded or challenged, even though there is not evidence of such. There is no evidence of the criticism or ridicule happening. And the seventh criteria is the person has recurrent suspicion of this word tonight. There we go. Suspicions without justification regarding fidelity or basically loyalty of their spouse or sexual partner. So this person is very, very worried about people leaving them, people exploiting them, people not being consistent within their life, which, if you can imagine, has very detrimental impacts on the person's actual functioning. If every relationship that you're in, you perceive that the person is going to leave you or exploit you in some way. Key caveat here is that the symptoms are not better explained by schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or depressive disorder with psychotic features. So that is the first diagnosis. The second diagnosis within the same cluster is schizoid personality disorder. So here, the key thing that I have people think about is that the word zoid here, think of a robot. So this person is going to exhibit a lot of symptoms of a robot. So words. such symptomology that we're going to be seeing here is that they do not have a desire for close relationships with others, which includes their family. So they do not enjoy being around people or their family members. So think about it. Like a robot has one purpose. They don't really associate with people a whole lot, and they just stay to themselves. They don't want to be around people. They don't enjoy being around people. And then with that, the person will always go towards solitary activities, or in fancy terms, they will engage in activities that they can do by themselves and does not require other people. So first two criteria, they don't enjoy being around people. They don't enjoy doing activities with people. So the person does not enjoy or have interest in having sexual experiences, because within that, having a sexual experience could be having a connection with someone, so with another person, because masturbation is a whole different other thing, and it could be considered a solitary thing. So the person does not get pleasure from a lot, if any, activities that they engage in. So this person is someone that doesn't want to be around people, doesn't enjoy doing activities with people, and they don't even get pleasure from the activities they do. It's almost just like a task-based system. They feel like they have to do the behavior, so they engage in the behavior. The person lacks friendships or connections with people other than their first degree relatives, or i.e., immediate family members, which does not need to be blood. So this could be somebody that has close relationships with a couple people in the community or a couple friends around, but other than that, they don't really branch out beyond themselves. So it appears that the person does not care about criticism and or does not even really respond to it. They keep to themselves and know what their value and purpose is. And then the seventh criteria, the person shows emotional coldness, detachment, and does not really respond to affection well. So within that, any type of closeness, connection with anybody that they kind of get turned off to. And again, A common theme, and I'll just go up and do it again, is the symptoms cannot be quantified by major depressive disorder with psychotic features, schizophrenia, and or bipolar disorder, which it's closely sounding is the next one, a schizotypal personality disorder. So sounds kind of similar to it. However, what we're looking at here, and that I help people to differentiate the two, whip out and highlight the word typical. This person is not like a typical person. I'll put it in quotes because that's what I said. And yeah, so within this, if you can imagine, they don't really want to engage in a whole lot with people. And I just realized I forgot to quantify how many. 4 of the following. We'll call them symptoms. 4 of the following symptoms. And with schizotypal, this is where we need to have 5 of the symptoms. 5 or more of the following symptoms. And I will stop bolding because I do not like my bolds. So this is where the person is going to have ideas of reference. They view themselves highly. Which tend to be irrational beliefs about themselves and their capabilities. Second one, the person tends to have odd beliefs, such as magical thinking, which is they believe they have more power over situations than they actually do. Such as an example here is if Phil thought about his family not coming over for Christmas, they call to cancel their trip. Thus, Phil believes that thinking of his family not coming caused them to cancel. Super distorted type thinking like, oh yeah, I totally totally caused them from it because I don't want them doing it. So this is where we're getting to the more delusional type side of it. The person will experience extreme social anxiety, or fear of being judged by others, which leads them to not engage in social relationships. The person may exhibit odd speech patterns or ways of thinking. They may have vague thoughts, mumble, stereo, typical, thinking, tangential, unrelated thought patterns. This word tonight, suspicious or paranoid ideations regarding people, places, situations, or things that do not have any possibility of happening. Inappropriate or constricted affect, not showing a lot of emotion, or when in a particular situation they react in a way that is the opposite of what would be expected, i.e., someone is laughing or smiling at a funeral. Someone may look and say, "What the heck's wrong? What the heck's wrong with this person?" They are now doing things that are out of the realm of what we would expect, and they are now doing exotic type things. Like, what is going on? Seventh, the person's behavior or appearance is odd, eccentric, or peculiar, such as someone wearing clothes that are beyond what you would normally expect within a situation, i.e., wearing a bathing suit to a therapy appointment in the winter. Still would be strange if someone showed up in a bathing suit to a therapy appointment in the summer. However, it's a little more connected within that lack of close friends or relationships with others outside of their immediate family. The person will have irrational thoughts of people's motives and over analyze when things happen around them or to them. And with that, we're still going to be looking at the same. It's not attributable to actual schizophrenia, and it's not bipolar disorder, and it's also not a depressive disorder with psychotic features. And with that, we move to the next layer of diagnoses, which is the cluster 2. And within cluster 2, it's often coined as the dramatic. Or cluster B. I'll go back to cluster B. I call them numbers It's inconsistent though. Dramatic, emotional, and erratic. Cluster. And then within that, we have varying diagnoses. And with that, we'll start with, I guess we'll go with borderline. We'll start with borderline. So borderline personality disorder. And this is where, a way to remember it, the person is always on the line of ending a relationship and engaging in a new one. And be able to diagnose this is where we need to have 5 or more symptoms. Let me bold this up. And the symptoms are as follows. Person has excessive or frantic efforts to avoid real or imaginary abandonment from others. And this does not involve SI, or I guess I'll spell it out, suicidal ideations or self-mutilation. Examples here: find people, objects, doing favors for people, etc. Second, person will have a pattern or frequent engagement in unstable and intense interpersonal relationships. Exhibited by alternating between idealization, thinking the relationship is more than it is, and devaluation. This relationship is crap, and I do not care about it. So it's like hot and cold. You're like, oh my God, I really love this person. I met them like 10 seconds ago. And then it's like, oh my God, I hate them. And it's often in a response to like them being rejected that they'll deevaluate it. Third, identity disturbance. They have an inconsistent view of themselves and will have high confidence followed by low self-esteem and self-image. image. So inflated sense of self, deflated sense of self. Super duper over it, goes down and swings. So it can almost also be often exhibited by mania. People think, oh, this person's manic, but they might actually have borderline personality disorder, because they can also have impulsivity that can potentially be self-damaging, such as spending money, having sexual relations with multiple people, substance use, reckless driving, binge eating, etc. So anything that could be like self-damaging to who they actually are for the benefit of someone else, or to cope with the reaction from someone else. So another criteria, recurrent suicidal behavior, gestures, or threats to kill themselves or to self mutilate themselves, often used as a manipulation technique to keep someone in a relationship with them. Person will have an unstable and or unpredictable mood, such as extreme episodes of euphoria followed by episodes of depression. Extreme anxiety, irritability, and these episodes can happen multiple times per day or span over a couple of days. So depending on the person's like symptomology and presentation, they could have multiple things of these every single day. So someone wakes up, they're super excited and they feel super down, and then they feel anxious and they are yelling at people, but then they swoop themselves back up because of a current event or something like that. So that's why it's often mistaken for like mania or bipolar disorder, because it's like, oh, this person's having huge hella mood swings, when it's not actually bipolar disorder. So this person will have chronic feelings of emptiness, or like they can never have enough of something, i.e., no matter what they do, it is never enough, and they feel like they are worthless, regardless of the result of the behavior. And another thing they might exhibit is inappropriate, intense episodes of anger, difficulty controlling anger, exhibited by temper, fights, arguments, etc. The person may experience stress related paranoia or severe dissociative symptoms, such as person may perceive things are going on when there is no evidence of such things. Person may have out of body type experiences and not understand why. And then this one isn't related to the depressive disorder with psychotic features, schizophrenia, or bipolar disorder. So that's why I will not include that after this one. And that is where we'll lead ourselves into histrionic personality disorder. And for this one, when I tell people the person is trying to make themselves a part of history. Because the way that they're exhibiting themselves, you'd think that they are super duper important, or they're trying to bring attention to themselves, such as their historic figure. And the symptomology we're looking at here is 5 or more symptoms of the following. And we'll bold it up. And then this one, we're looking at the person has discomfort when in situations that they are not the center of attention. Interactions with other people is often stemmed or rooted out of inappropriate sexually seductive behavior or provocative behavior wow, my hands want to work beyond what is expected for the environment. Example, the person may show off their body while at a nightclub when everyone else is clothed. Another example, someone may begin talking about their body or showing off their body to other people to make the situation about them. Oops. The person displays rapid shifting type moods or shallow expressions of emotion. They will go from being excited to depressed within a matter of seconds. The person will consistently use their physical appearance to draw attention to themselves. The person has a specific style of speech that is excessively impersonistic and lacking in detail. But to break it down in less technical terms, the person will take on the actions and speech of others to help make themselves included in every situation. So I'm sure you've seen this person. Regardless of where you're at, this person knows something about the situation, or knows something about the topic, or acts like they know something about the specific topic that you're talking about, such as, let's say, social work. Let's say I'm on a date with somebody and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a social worker. And then they start trying to tell me what a social worker is, or how they've met a social worker once before, so they should know everything about what I do when they don't know anything. Or they start using terminology that I was using about social work to make themselves more connected to me in some way, shape, or fashion. Person has excessive expression of their emotions. They are self-traumatized. What the heck? Self-traumatization. They act as if they are in a theater act. The person is very moldable and suggestible to those around them, so that way they are always accepted by those around them. The person considers relationships to be more intimate than they actually are. Common characteristics: the person will attempt to make themselves appear more skilled or impressive than they are to people to gain their approval or acceptance. The next disorder that we're going to be looking at, narcissistic personality disorder. Oops. So this person will attempt to make everything about them. And will attempt to have power at all costs. So, person must have 5 or more of the following symptoms. The first one we're looking at is the person has a grandiose sense of self-importance. The person will exaggerate their accomplishments and talents. They expect their superiors or others to congratulate them on their efforts. The person is preoccupied by fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, intelligence, beauty, or ideal love. The person believes that they are special, put that in quotation marks, and unique, and can only be understood by or associate with other people of their status and or importance. Someone may only attempt to have friends with people who have potential or may cut out friends who they lack as untalented. So then the fourth, the person requires excessive amounts of admiration and attention from those around them. the person has a sense of entitlement, i.e., they have unreasonable expectations around what people should do for them, or what type of treatment they should have from others, which stems from their sense of self importance. With that, we then look at the person will engage in relationships that they can exploit or manipulate people to get what they want. Well, said in other terms, they will take advantage of people and use them to get closer to what their goals are without consideration of the harm to that person. Number 7, the person lacks empathy and is unable / unwilling to recognize or identify with feelings or the needs of others. The person is often envious of others or believes that others are envious of them. The person will exhibit arrogance, high on themselves type attitude. They feel like they are better than everyone and that no one can match their potential, which then leads us into our next little cluster, C. And these are coined as the anxious, let me put it in quotations, anxious and fearful cluster. And the first one that we'll hit on is avoidant personality disorder. The person will avoid social situations because of their own self-image and perceived criticisms from others. So let me tap this down so we're all on the same page. So within this, we're looking at 4 or more of the following criteria. First one, The person avoids occupational activities that involve significant interpersonal contact because they fear criticism, disapproval, or rejection. Person will not do anything that they fear that they could be judged or critiqued on. The person is unwilling to get involved with people unless they are certain that they will be liked. They will only hang around people who they know or people that they trust. Mutual friends of people they are close with. So if I am working with somebody and they invite me out and I'm like, okay, I like this person. And then they start describing their friend to me and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know them. But I'm like, oh, I've known this person for a long time. They don't really judge people and I'm really close with them. You may not avoid it because you have some type of mutuality there. But if it's somebody that you perceive might not like you, you're like, yep, screw that, not going to that. And the person shows restraint within a sexual relationship because of the fear of being shamed or ridiculed. They will only do behaviors that they know the person enjoys and suppress any urges or behaviors that their partner may not accept. The person is preoccupied with being criticized or rejected in social situations. The person is habituated in new interpersonal relationships because of feelings of inadequacy. The person may shut down or not express themselves because they feel like they will not be accepted and that the other person hates them. The person views themselves as inept, undesirable, unappealing, and inferior to others in every aspect of their life. person is reluctant to take personal risk or to engage in any new activities. Wow. Because they do not want to embarrass themselves or look different from others. The next we're looking at here, dependent personality disorder. They depend on others for their own identity. They feel like they have to take care of others. And the amount of criteria we're looking at here is 5 or more of the following symptoms. 1, the person has a difficulty making everyday decisions on their own, and they will seek out excessive amounts of advice to reassure their decision. They look for other people to provide guidance and to co-sign their life. The person needs others to assume responsibility for most major life decisions. They do not want to be responsible for any negative things in their life. And the person has a difficulty expressing disagreement with others in their life because of fear of lost support or approval from them. They do not want to potentially end a relationship based on their own needs or feelings. Number 4 here. The person has a difficulty initiating projects or doing things on their own because they lack the confidence in their ability to make a sound decision. So they kind of like are waiting on other people to help guide them. The person does not trust their own judgment or they do not have confidence in their own skills to maintain an activity. So they may initiate it, but they might look for somebody to co-sign it that it's a good idea. We can often see this in like maybe dieting or the gym. Like somebody will say like, let's say Phil is going to start working out. Given I already do, but let's say I'm like, oh my god, I started doing this new workout routine, and I'm telling my buddy this, and he's like, oh, that sounds great, that's amazing, you should totally do this, and I'm like, he just co-signed my decision. So if I had a dependent personality disorder, I may be like, oh wow, is this a good decision for me to do? Because I'm not confident in my own ability. But I'm not telling him that I'm not confident in my ability. I'm just more or less trying to bounce an idea, but it's almost if it's excessive, then that's when someone may have that type of personality disorder. So the person goes to excessive lengths to receive nurturance and support from others to the point of volunteering to do things that are unpleasant or detrimental to the person. They may volunteer to watch someone's children even though they have a major project due at work. So they'll go to large lengths of being like, oh, well, screw my job, I can get another one, but I can't get another friendship like this. And you're like, woof, maybe not. So the person feels uncomfortable or helpless when alone because of exaggerated fears of being unable to take care of themselves. So they don't even trust their ability to take care of themselves, even though they're capable. They do not trust themselves to make life decisions and thus do not want to take responsibility for their own will. 7, the person urgently seeks another relationship for a source of support and care when a close relationship ends. The person is unrealistically preoccupied with fears of being left to take care of themselves. They will do anything to have someone to take care of them. So next one we're looking at excessive compulsive personality disorder. So this is totally different from OCD. OCD, we have obsessions and then we have compulsions in response to this. With this being a personality disorder, the person doesn't really have obsessions and compulsions that they respond to. It's more stemmed on particulars and peculiars. So This person looks to be a perfectionist, which is why they are obsessed obsessed with things in their life. So this person needs 4 or more of the following symptoms. So 1, the person is preoccupied with details, rules, lists, order, organization, or schedules to the extent that the major point of the activity is gone. And kind of a foolish example of this is the person may read the rules to Monopoly and enforce them to the extent that no one wants to play with them. And the person shows perfectionism that interferes with task completion. I.e., the person is unable to proceed in a project until they feel like the particular part is 100% accurate or perfect. They have unrealistic expectations of a project and are too stubborn to change them. Third, the person is overly devoted to work and productivity to the exclusion of leisure activities and friendships. The reason that the person is preoccupied by work is not from actual economic necessity. So if you have somebody that is working a super lot and avoiding friendships and leisure activities because they're going to be homeless, that's a totally different story than if somebody's sitting on like 6 figures and they're still excessively working and avoiding relationships that they'd normally not be avoiding, you know. So it's important to keep in consideration that at what capacity and what is the motive behind the person doing it. So the person is overly structured and inflexible about matters that dictate. Wow. Dictate their ethics, morals, or values. The reason for their inflexibility is beyond, wow, is beyond religious or cultural identification. So this would look like someone who does not eat out at restaurants because they feel like it will ruin their entire diet that they have been following for the last 6 years. So this is somebody that's like, all right, I've been dieting for 6 years. I'm totally not going to go out to eat with you guys. I'll totally skip out and I can't handle this. This is dumb. I need to follow and stay true to who I actually am. And you're just like, whoa, it's a little bit over structured, but different stroke, different folk. But you need to just keep in mind that to what excess. So the person is unable to discard worn out or worthless objects even when they have no sentimental value to them. The person is reluctant to delegate tasks or work with others unless they submit to their exact ways of doing things or rules set forth. The person is afraid of trusting others to help them in fear that it could ruin their style or style, name, or brand. So in a company thing, you'd be like, all right, man, you're doing like 300 jobs. Why are you not delegating at least one or two to these other people that are still skilled and able to do what you do? Over control and fixation and structure within that. So the person adopts a miserly spending style towards both self and others. Money is viewed as something to be hoarded for future crises. Person will not spend money even when it could be entirely necessary or they have access that they could share with others. So over control again, and the person shows rigidity and stubbornness. So those are what we're looking at with that. So any questions on the personality disorders? I feel like I'm missing one. Borderline, schizo, paranoid, schizoid, schizotypal, borderline, histrionic, narcissistic, avoidant, dependent, obsessive. Yeah, we are missing one. We're totally missing one. And the one that we're missing, anti-social personality disorder. And this one is one where we're looking at a little bit more wilder because the person is doing behaviors that are pretty erratic and more on the legality side of things. And this is often where the person does not have any disregard for other people and will do anything to get what they want. And this one, I'm going to move it up to where it belongs in cluster B. Yeah, I'll just put it above narcissistic. And this one is where someone needs to have 3 or more of the following symptoms. So the first one, the person has a failure to conform with social norms with respect to lawful behaviors as indicated. Wow. Indicated by repeatedly repeatedly performing acts that are grounds for arrest. The person is deceitful and will often lie, have multiple aliases, or will utilize people for personal, financial, or pleasurable gain. Three, the person does not have impulsivity control, or they lack the ability to think / plan ahead. The person will react based on how they feel, regardless of the consequences in the situation. The person will have irritability and aggressiveness towards others. This person may have frequent physical fights, assaults, or heated arguments with others. Criteria 5. The person has a reckless disregard for the safety of themselves or others. The person will engage in risky behaviors or put others in risky situations without the thought of the potential consequences. 6. The person has a consistent irresponsibility for themselves or others. They may have repeated engagement in situations that could put them at risk in financial, personal, or work related obligations. The person may spend money they do not have or skip work related functions. The person has a lack of remorse. The person does not have any feelings or acknowledgement when they hurt, mistreat, or steal from others. They may attempt to rationalize their actions. The person must be at least 18 years old. So most personality disorders, a person has to be 18, but this one in particular, because the childhood diagnosis that we're looking at here is conduct disorder. There is evidence of conduct disorder with onset before the age of 18. I mean, not 18, of the age 15 years old. And then, So these are not criteria. These are just different. I'll get out of town. And D, occurrence is not exclusively during the course of schizophrenia, such as delusional type behavior or bipolar disorder. Okay. Now we have hit all of our personality disorders. Does anyone have any questions on those? I didn't get the link in time. Is paranoid the first one that I went over? Yes. We just got started first. Yes, thanks. Looks like a child with reactive attachment could possibly develop or have schizoid. Yeah, so reactive attachment is definitely a precursor to anti-personality disorder, antisocial personality. Would you please highlight all the personalities so that it's easier to identify? Yes. They have all been, only the cluster is different. What is the difference between bipolar 1 and 2? So that's a different discussion. Any questions in particular about the personality disorders? Okay. So what I thought of going over next is the different like schizophrenia spectrum, and then major depressive disorder, and then GAD. What would you guys rather see? Would you like to see the schizophrenia spectrum, or would you like me to prioritize MDD and GAD, or do you want me to go through all of them? Because I'm willing to go through all of them if you guys are. I just noticed that we're looking at like 8:40. But if you guys are willing to sit here and listen, I'm willing to go through them. All right. All right, guys, I'll go through all of them. Don't worry. Okay. So with that, I'll go through. Oh, what happened here? So I'll go through the psychotic disorders first. And this is where it's going to be kind of similar. It's just the length of time is going to be different. So brief psychotic disorder is the first one. And this is characterized as thought. So thought pattern disorder in which the person will experience short-term gross motor deficits in reality testing manifested. Wow. Manifested by at least one of the following symptoms, which must be 1, 2, or 3. So I'm going to tap this down. And before I send it out, don't worry, I'll highlight and make the... Oh, smokes, I forgot I was in the middle of the clusters. Hang on. I totally forgot that. All right. Zip to the bottom. That makes a lot more sense. Okay. So duration here, less than 1 month. So that's important. Anytime a question says less than 1 month, we're looking at brief psychotic. So symptomology here is 1, delusions. And those are strange beliefs and ideas in which are resistant to rational slash logical dispute or contradictions from others. So if it's delusions, that has to be present. Hallucinations, however, if it's brief psychotic of hallucinations, we're going to have someone that's doing auditory, visual, tactile, or, well, they can have them all. So, and or olfactory, which is smell. So tactile is touch, visual, auditory, and olfactory is smells. So if someone's smelling something that's not actually there, then that would be olfactory. So the next one, disorganized speech, which is basically incoherent or irrational content. Someone is tangential or speaking about things that are not entirely connected or realistic. So you may be talking to somebody and they said that their toaster was telling them that it was going to rain today, and then they start expounding on what they did yesterday and then what happened 40 years ago, and you're like, holy smokes, what's happening? Or the fourth one, disorganized or catatonic behavior, which is repetitive, senseless movements, or adopting a pose which may be maintained for hours. So the person's not really moving, they're not really speaking. The individual may be resistant to efforts to move them in a different posture, or will assume a new posture they are placed in. And here, symptoms are not better explained by a depressive disorder, psychotic features, or bipolar disorder with psychotic features. And again, duration 1 to 30 days. Or less than 1 month. So the criteria that we're looking at here is pretty shallow. which then leads us to the next category, schizophrenia form, pre-form of schizophrenia. So with this, wow. Requires at least 2 or more of the following within at least a 1 month period. Yet less than 6 months. So, the thing to keep in mind is that symptoms 1 to 3 are considered positive symptoms. So 1, delusions, which we've seen before, which are false beliefs that are not based in reality, and that the person refuses to give up even when presented with factual information. Number 2, hallucinations, which we have seen before, visual or seen, hearing, tactile, feeling. So, I guess to be consistent, auditory or hearing, or olfactory, or smelling. Things that are not actually there. 3, disorganized speech. And with that, we're looking at saying things that do not make sense, using made up words that have no meaning, and skipping from topic to topic with no common theme, or being, in fancy term, tangential. 4, odd or strange behavior. Such as pacing, walking in circles, writing constantly, repetitive movement with no rhyme or reason. Number 5, So grossly disorganized, catatonic behavior. So repetitive, senseless movements, adopt and oppose, in which may be maintained for hours. The individual may resist efforts to be moved to a different position or will assume the new position for hours. 6. And the negative other symptoms would be lack of energy, poor hygiene or lack of grooming, loss of interest, in things they would enjoy, withdrawal from family, friends, and social activities. And then another component, schizoaffective and bipolar disorder. Disorder with psychotic features have been ruled out. And again, duration more than 1 month, yet less than 6 months. And then I'm just going to do this. Because schizophrenia is the exact same disorder. It's just the length of time that we're looking at. So, bink. And then duration here that we're looking at, you guessed right, 6 months or more. So that's the way to tell them apart. Brief psychotic, less than 30. Pre-form of schizophrenia comes before schizophrenia, so schizophrenia form is after a brief psychotic at 1 month, yet less than schizophrenia, which is 6 months, which then leads us into our last two, which are MDD and GAD. So major depressive disorder. Wow, if I could capitalize, that'd be nice. All right, so let me bold it up. So MDD requires 5 or more of the following symptoms in the same 2 week Well, period. It may be present in either a depressed mood or loss of interest or pleasure. "30 days or more." So it could be a consistent 2-week period or off and on for 30 days. Why did I do that? Should bold it. But I will unhighlight for those that don't enjoy the highlighting. Okay. So the criteria we're looking at here: depressed mood most days and close to nearly every day. Lack of interest or decrease in interest in things someone used to enjoy. Three, significant weight loss or weight gain when someone was not trying to lose or gain weight. Insomnia or hypersomnia nearly every day. Psychomotor agitation or regression, meaning someone is hyper energized or lacking energy, so having less movement or interest in moving, or not being able to sit still. So on two totally different sides of it. On fatigue or loss of energy nearly every day. Feelings of worthlessness or excessive guilt. Worrying about offending or losing relationships, which can be viewed outside of what is actually happening. 8, diminished ability to think or concentrate on tasks. 9, recurrent thoughts of death or wanting to commit suicide. Symptoms must be clinically significant and have a negative impact on one's functioning. C, symptoms are not attributable to a health condition or other psychological disorders. So that is what we're looking at for MDD. And that is when we'll go to our last disorder, our good old generalized anxiety disorder, or quantified typically as GAD. And I guess we could do the same for major depressive disorder as MDD. So with GAD, someone has excessive worry more days than not for longer than 6 months. A. Okay, someone's phantomly highlighting. B. Must have 3 or more of the following. Yes, this whole thing will be recorded. I must have 3 or more of the following symptoms. One, so restlessness or feelings of being on edge, so ready to react at any moment. 2, being easily fatigued. 3, difficulty concentrating or thoughts moving in multiple directions. Irritability or shouting at people. 5, muscle tension. 6, sleep disturbance. C, the anxiety or worry has a clinically significant impact on the person's functioning. D, disturbance is not better attributed to another mental health disorder or substance use, intoxication, or withdrawal. Okay. So that's MDD. That's GAD. So, okay. Who keeps drawing? Okay. So with that, do you guys want me to go over the medications as well? Or do you want me to get into the questions? So I guess type in the chat medications or questions, whichever one you would like to see. Both. Oh yeah, you're gonna see both. Don't worry. I was waiting on meds. Okay, don't worry, guys. All right. I was just wondering on timing. Like I was telling you guys, I don't mind spending the time. I just want to know where my people are at. I can talk for days. People that have been rocking with me for a long time. They know that the 2 hours is it's just a suggestion at this point. So let's go. I'll put them in boxes so they're all on the same page. So antidepressants will be the first one that we look at. So within those, I will provide Weeps, the generic name and the brand name, because you don't know which one you're going to expect, but most times I see the brand name. Sertraline. No, sertraline. The next one is Cymbalta or duolotine effexor, which is vaccine, Wellbutrin, which is bupropion. And don't worry, once I type them out, I'll explain like strategies to remember them and stuff like that. I just need to get the real estate on there. Trazodone with Dex. Yeah, Deseron. Okay. Beeps. And then Seroquel. Oops. Okay. Antidepressants are done. Like I said, hang on, guys. I just need to type it all out. And then I'll explain them. All right, so lithium, Depakote, lamictal, valproic acid, haldol, Latuda, and Abilify. What does? Ivopro X. Lamictal is Lamo Again? Ibuprofen. Alright. Move this over here. Alright, 2 more boxes. And then I'll explain it. Like I said, guys, give me a second. I'll explain why I put the things where I did. I would not lead you astray. Okay. All right, thanks for bearing with me as I type those. Okay, so the strategy that we're looking at here with the antidepressants is we're looking at, whoops, hang on, remember to keep your mics muted, guys. Okay, so we have INE at the end of this. So anytime you see that as an option in a question, if they give you that is an option, that's what we're going to be looking at here. INE. And then the other ones, such as like Wellbutrin or Bupropion, if they give you one of those, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to identify, but most antidepressants have the INE at the end. And anti-anxiety, for example, has the LAM at the end, LAM or PAM. So the rhyme that I typically tell people that I work with is that Pam needs anti-anxiety meds to work with her LAMs. So the majority of those are LAM or PAM. However, we do have Buspar and Librium underneath that as well. Those are a little trickier, but they also don't have a generic name to go by. It's all brand name. So with those, it's just you see LAM or PAM at the end, you go with that. And remember, anti-anxiety is INE at the end as well. So that moves us to our mood stabilizers. So lithium doesn't have it. So these don't really have a trick with what you would be looking for because there's no common theme. But there's not that many of them. So we have lithium, we have our Depakotes, we have our Lamictal, we have our valproic acid or the Depakine, which is closely related to Depakote. And I also put Haldol and Latuda and Abilify into this because it could also be acquainted with that as well. That is where we're looking at. That is where we're looking at what it looks like. We can use our antipsychotics with our mood disorders as well, since they mimic a lot of the symptomology. So depending on who you're working with and what the question could say, if it has one of those in it, and it's not asking particularly for a psychotic disorder, and you don't see any of the other mood stabilizers within the question, and then you would go with them. With our ADHDs, this is where we're going to be looking at our feta. So we need our feta cheese in the middle. So we have our amphetamine. We have our phen right here in the middle of Concerta and Ritalin. And then we have feta or phe in the middle of the Vyvanse name as well. So that's our ADHD easy way to call those, is we look for feta or PHE in the middle of it to be able to tell. However, if we see Adderall, Concerta, Ritalin, or Vyvanse within a question as well, we would want to go towards those, which then leads us into our antipsychotics. And with those, a common theme that we see is DONE or all. So we have our Haldol and its generic Haloperidol. We have our DONE for risperidone. Invega with haloperidol. Jodine with his prazodone. And then we have another all with our Abilify aripiprazole. And then, of course, we're going to have kind of some distractors with ENE, which is our antidepressants, but they seem a little more harsh, like chlorphrazamine. Like it's a little more intense than our names of the antidepressants. However, just being aware of that can be a little strategies better equipped and know what type of medications to look at. Medications are kind of tricky. However, when you have repeated exposure to them and ways to remember them, they can become a little easier. So does anyone have any questions on the medications or any diagnoses that I went over? And if you do, just type in the chat so that way I can best assist and answer any questions that we have on that. Okay. So with that being said, I normally don't really record the questions. However, do you guys want me to try and record them and see what it looks like for you guys? Yes, I'm doing practice questions right now. So if you want the questions recorded, just type recorded in the chat and then I can try my best. If you don't want them recorded, say no. Okay, guys. So this is where I'm not sure. So, all right. So it looks like we're back recording. All right. So to break it down, we're a social worker at an outpatient clinic, completing an intake assessment. And who are we working with? A 35-year-old male that was referred by the friend. He reports finding it difficult to form relationships and that he'll often have periods of loneliness. That he has urges to reach out to people, but due to previous experiences, fears being rejected, only engage in activities that he's good at because he doesn't want anyone to think that he's stupid. And the duration getting worse in the last year. So knowing this, we need to know GAD is 6 months or more. MDD is 2 weeks / more than 30 days. And then our personality disorders, we don't really have a whole lot of things going on within those because that is where they don't have an age thing. So we'll automatically rule out generalized and major depressive disorder because it's more of a personality disorder and affecting the person's ability to function and operate in their own environment. So paranoid and avoidant. So in avoidant, this is where people avoid relationships for the sole fact of not wanting to be scrutinized and not wanting to be criticized by people. Paranoid is where someone is worried that someone is always going to like potentially be out to get them, leave them, exploit them in some particular fashion. This person's not saying that they're going to get exploited at all. So with that, they do have some anxiety type stuff, but not to the point of paranoia. So that is where we'd be looking at more avoidant personality disorder. So that'd be the correct answer. Okay. So here we're looking at a 21-year-old client who's been working with a social worker at a community health clinic for the past 5 months. The client reports hearing voices that tell him to hurt his parents and that they have caused him to isolate from social situations. The client reports finding it difficult to sleep and that he feels like someone from his dreams is going to hurt him. The client denies being hospitalized and that he can keep his symptoms under control. What is the most likely diagnosis for this client? So we have a 21-year-old client working with a social worker at a community health clinic. We're looking at 5 months. So in a diagnosis thing, the amount of time is the most important. So his symptomology is hearing voices that tell him to hurt his parents, and he isolates from social situation. He finds it difficult to sleep and having dreams to hurt. And he denies being hospitalized and thinks that he can keep the symptoms under control. So schizoid personality disorder would not be the best answer here because that personality disorder, remember, they don't want close relationships. This person's avoiding social relationships to avoid hearing voices to hurt them. So it's not that he doesn't want the relationships and that he's not trying to avoid engaging in closeness or anything like that. He has some capacity of wanting to connect with people. So that is where we broach into these certain things. So remember, brief psychotic disorder is 1 to 30 days. Schizophreniform is 1 to 6 months. Well, and schizophrenia is 6 months or more. And we're looking at 5 months. So that means schizophrenia instantly is slapped out. And that gives us brief psychotic disorder and schizophreniform. But since this has been going on for 5 months, brief psychotic disorder would be ruled out. And that would leave us with schizophreniform, would be the correct answer here. All right, so a social worker at a private practice has been working with a 29-year-old female for 6 months. During the most recent session, the client describes how she recently had a breakup with her boyfriend, who she met 2 weeks ago, that she let move in with her. The client reports that she's angry with him because she just let him borrow $1,000 to get his car fixed and that she thought he loved her. The client begins to appear anxious and closed off. The client reports how she has been feeling empty and hopeless, but feels like her date with a guy she met at the gas station later should raise her mood. What is the most likely diagnosis for this client? So where are we at? Private practice. Where is the client? 29-year-old female. How long have we been seeing him? 6 months. So during the most recent session, the client describes that she had a breakup with a boyfriend she met 2 weeks ago. So we want to always take note of how long the client was in a relationship, and she'll let them move in after knowing them for 2 weeks. Reports that she's angry at him because she let him borrow $1,000 to get the car fixed, and that she thought he loved her. Client begins to appear anxious and closed off, and reports she's been feeling empty but has a date with another person. So with that being said, we have borderline personality disorder, schizophrenia, generalized anxiety disorder, or dependent personality disorder. So here we have 6 months. 6 months or more. And then schizophrenia, 6 months or more. And remember, personality disorders typically don't have time frame. They just more or less have over the age of 18. So the duration can vary because the symptoms could manifest during the younger years, and then only be diagnosed after 18. So here, we don't have any psychosis or anything like that. So schizophrenia would be ruled out. GAD, we have some anxiety, but it's not to the excess to that, and there's some more underlying things going on here. So then we have borderline personality disorder, and then we have dependent personality disorder. So the way to distinguish these two: person engages in relationships, will do anything to initiate or keep a relationship. Fluctuation of mood and impulsivity on their end. Dependent, on the other hand, is when we're looking at someone who needs others to make decisions for them, gets into relationships to be taken care of, low self-esteem, low moods, finds it difficult to do things on their own. So on their faces and their names, they sound quite similar. However, when you look deeper, this person, dependent, is going to be looking for someone to take care of them or for them to do things around to maintain a relationship, so that way they have someone to take care of them. Borderline engages in relationships with people quick, initiates them, and does anything to keep them. Often does not do it and thinks that things are deeper than they are. Mania type symptomology and impulsivity. So this client let someone move in after 2 weeks, let them borrow $1,000 and thought the person loved them, became anxious and closed off after being super comfortable. So some fluctuation of mood there. Feelings of emptiness and hopelessness when engaging and feeling their situation, which is another criteria for borderline. So in this instance, borderline personality disorder would be the correct answer, because dependent would be looking for someone to take care of them and help them make decisions. Okay, so we have a 45-year-old client who was referred to a social worker in an outpatient clinic by their employer due to having erratic behavior while at work. The client reports feeling like he's not valued at work, and without him there, the company would go out of business. The client reports getting into frequent arguments with his boss, and what he feels like he knows more than his boss does, so he does not need to listen to him. The client begins discussing how he plans to open his own business and the amount of money he will have. What disorder best describes the symptoms the client is exhibiting? So our 45-year-old client here, and referred to an outpatient clinic by an employer. And they're having erratic behavior, so that's why they refer them. The client reports that he's feeling not valued at work and that the business would go out of it with him. He's getting into frequent arguments and feels like he knows more than his boss does. The client begins discussing how he plans to open his own and how much money he will make. So borderline's out because there's no relationship or maintaining relationships. It's actually ending it. There's no mania in here, so bipolar disorder is going to be ruled out. So then we have obsessive compulsive personality disorder, or we have narcissistic personality disorder. So they're both super fixated on structure and productivity. However, they are very, very different when presented. So narcissistic personality disorder is when someone feels they are better than everyone, will do anything for power, feel entitled, and that they should automatically be respected. And obsessive compulsive personality disorder is where the person is fixated on rules, structured, hoards money, has set principles, and stubborn and rigid. Just like the last question, they look kind of similar on their face, but it's not going to be obsessive compulsivity disorder, because this person's more about themselves and that they're better than everyone rather than being structured and about productivity. They're all about themselves, and they're fixating about the money and power they could potentially have if they open their own business. That's where we're going to be looking at more of a narcissistic personality disorder. All right, so we have a social worker that is meeting with a 55-year-old female who reported not feeling like herself. The woman reports that her husband passed away a year and a half ago and that she took it pretty hard. She found that she did not leave her house for 6 months, did not find pleasure in anything, stopped attending church, and would have missed Christmas last year if her children did not drive her to her home and convince her to go. The woman reports that right when she started to feel better, that her daughter was killed in a car crash 3 months ago, which brought back all of her depression. What diagnosis are we looking at? So we have a 55-year-old female who reported not feeling like herself. She reports that her husband passed away a year and a half ago. She took it pretty hard. She reports that she did not leave her house for 6 months, did not find pleasure in anything, stopped going to church, and would have missed Christmas. However, subsequently did not miss Christmas. She reports that her daughter was killed 3 months ago. So with that, we need to know persistent is 2 years or longer of symptomology. MDD is 2 weeks / more than 30 days. GAD, 6 months or more. And then adjustment is symptoms within 1 month to 3 months, but not longer than 6 months. The reaction to the adjustment is what is beyond what is normally expected. Okay, so with that, the time frames that we're looking at is a year and a half and 3 months. So persistence out, so it's not longer than 2 years. Clients not really describing any anxiety symptomology. We're more or less looking at depression, and she even identified that her symptoms are depression. So then we have MDD or adjustment disorder. So they both meet the time frame. However, if someone had a husband pass away, the symptomology is pretty consistent. And if someone had a daughter die in a car crash, it's pretty consistent. So this lady isn't having anything too wild happen within it, because maybe not leaving the house for 6 months was beyond what was normally expected, but we're only addressing the daughter in the car crash. So with that being said, adjustment disorder would not be the correct answer. So we'd be looking at more of a major depressive disorder, because agoraphobia is a symptom of MDD. So that would be the correct answer there.